Good evening, everyone. My name is Trent Sullivan, as the Mayor of the City of Great Geelong. I'll be chairing tonight's July Council meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Poa Bunyal Community Hub, a facility that is playing a very crucial and important role in developing communities of Armstrong Creek and Mount Denise. This $13 million facility has a fantastic 5-star green rating, which was developed by the City of Great Geelong in partnership with the Victorian State Government. It was brought to life by $2.25 million from the state and $10.7 from the council, and it's now providing access to a wide array of family services, early years for caring gardens, caring communities for young families, community services, maternal child healthcare, and consulting rooms, 3-year-old kinder, and multi-purpose rooms for playgroups and community programs. For all of our community members who are streaming on tonight, welcome. And welcome to everybody who is in the room as well. As many of you know, councillors really do much enjoy getting out to the public and talking with people. We do this on multiple occasions throughout the year, but these meetings that we host out in the community outside of City Hall are a crucial step in these. At these meetings, ward councillors like to provide an update on what's happening in their community, projects that are underway, things that are funded, things that have been recently completed. And there's plenty of exciting things that have been delivered down here in the Cardinia ward. So councillors Ron Nelson, Bruce Harwood and Belinda Maloney will deliver their presentation shortly. After that, we'll go to questions, our official Q&A time, and then we'll get into our reports. But before that presentation, I'll take the opportunity to wish local athletes who are competing in the Paris Olympics all the best. They are Mia Gross, Joel Baden, Angus Widdicombe, Marissa Williamson-Pullman, Jock Landale, Lauren Ryan, Kira Cooney-Cross, Penny Smith, Bryn Liddle, and Rhea Thompson. Congratulations on your selection and all that you have achieved in reaching the Olympics. Whether these athletes were born in Geelong, grew up, or lived here temporarily, have family here, competed, trained, or went to school locally, they all have something that connects them to our unique part of the world. So no matter how passing their connection, for the next fortnight, we can claim these athletes as locals, and we certainly shall, as they chase glory in the pinnacle of sporting achievement on behalf of Council and the greater Geelong community, and wish them all the very best. Also, before I go to Cardinia ward councillors, I think all of us wish happy birthday to Councillor Sarah Hathaway, who's here on her birthday with us tonight.
Happy parade.
Yeah. All right, I'll now hand over to the Cardinia ward councillors for their presentation. Who's kicking off?
Happy birthday. Sorry. I've got a friend who cries at the sound of happy birthday, so it's a bit of an emotional thing for some people. Hi everyone, nice to see you all in the borough. And my name is Belinda Maloney. I'm the councillor for Cardinia ward. Well, it won't be for a little while, and it will be Charlemont, I believe, with the new ward boundaries. So looking forward to that coming up. But firstly, I'm thrilled to announce that we are officially opening on Thursday the Swiss cheese looking building up the road there, which is amazing. It looks fantastic. It's called Viala at Armstrong Creek Library. It's opening in 2 days' time, this Thursday, and we've got the Minister coming down from Spring Street to open that with some scissors and funky ribbon, so that'll be great. There's over 30,000 books and new resources in the much anticipated library, so it's much more than just a library, it's a bit of a community hub as well, much like this place. It'll be a fantastic asset for the massively growing area that we're in. So builder Nicholson Construction finished the work in May, and the Geelong Regional Library Corporation has completed a fit-out, which includes a 3-storey building full of a children's storytime area, outdoor terraces, multi-purpose and creative spaces such as a media studio and a maker space, which will have some cool laser cutters and all sorts of things to get you creative juices flowing, and I think that's great for a community where perhaps space is not an option in their houses, so that's great. Also, this will be available for the community to use and enjoy. It's fascinating to see that we've got the library coming together over the last few months. Its construction and design has been like watching a puzzle get put together with all the pieces being assembled, and it's intrigued locals and visitors alike. The eye-catching building was designed by Buchan Architects, who worked closely with the Wadawurrung traditional owners to create a living water narrative which fits in with the local landscape. Council funded the majority of the $21.864 million library. That's, wow. That's a lot to say, and it's a lot of coins. But the Victorian government also contributed $1.5 million to its Living Libraries program. So thanks for the chip in. We also have more than $20 million investment in this fantastic facility, which is our commitment to the community and our growing region. It's also the sort of infrastructure that we at Council would like to build and to support our rapidly expanding growth areas and make them places that we love to go. And the library will be open following this Thursday, 1st of August. I'll pass on to Bruce.
Thank you, Belinda, and welcome all here this evening. Excuse me. Another project supporting our region here is the recently completed $2.1 million upgrade of Sugar Gum Drive and Bodiga Street in Warn Ponds. It's funded by the Australian Government Raise to Recovery program. And the program was completed 6 weeks ahead of schedule by the City of Greater Geelong's design, program delivery and construction teams in May this year. Works included road rehabilitation, curb and channel upgrades, reflective pavement markers, and new line marking between Oakwood Crescent and Rossack Drive. The upgrades have come in response to increasing traffic with about 11,000 vehicles, including heavy vehicles such as trucks and buses travelling these roads each day. I guess it just gives a snapshot of the huge growth in our southern part of Geelong. Importantly, the works have improved safety for road users and pedestrians near the Warn Ponds railway station. With upgrades to Warn Ponds station completed in 2022 and the duplication of the railway line to South Geelong station underway, along with residential growth and the number of people travelling from station to station is set to increase dramatically in coming years. So these works on Sugar Gum Drive and Bodiga Street will help ensure that passengers can safely access the station. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Bruce.
Goes over there.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Across the road at Surf Coast Highway, we've allocated another $700,000 to begin designing a new neighbourhood centre in Charlemont. This follows several community consultation sessions, one of which I attended down in Charlemont a couple of months ago. The community's input will help officers design the hub on the corner of Amber Avenue and Precinct Road. Currently, the concept designs for the hub include various multi-purpose spaces, a north-facing kindergarten, outdoor space, parent waiting areas, a large outdoor area, consulting suites for maternal and child health, allied health and supporting services, and a space for future community garden. The hub will meet the growing demand for childcare in Charlemont and neighbouring suburbs, with hundreds of young families moving to the area. There's currently around 6,400 people living in Marshall and Charlemont, and that will increase to around 18,000 by 2041. The hub will cost an estimated $19.7 million, just like the library there, with funding to come from a range of sources and developer contributions. We hope to commence construction next year, and hopefully that'll be finished in 2027.
Oh, back to me. Thanks, Ron. The next one is allocated funds, so further funding across the Armstrong Creek growth area for sporting facilities. Obviously a hot topic out here with the growth of the population and the use of the existing recreation reserves. So this includes a $1.6 million increase toward, or allocation toward, a new pavilion at Sovereign Drive Recreation Reserve in Mountainede, and another $176,000 toward additional sporting fields and supporting infrastructure. Already this reserve is a popular location for junior soccer players, cricketers, dog owners playing with their four-legged friends when the oval's not being used for sport, of course. This funding will help make the reserve even better, which will in turn encourage the growth of local sporting clubs. We can already see the growth of the Armstrong Creek Sharks out here from its inception now up to, I think up to under 12s, under 14s or similar, and beyond in soccer, which just demonstrates again the future growth here and the need to accommodate that growth, and particularly participation of women in sport. As a council, we understand the vital role of sporting clubs by connecting people and keeping them fit, healthy and mentally well. This is why we are supporting these projects, along with a variety of other projects across Cardinia Ward, such as Winter Reserve, Belmont Netball Upgrade and Queen's Park change facilities for female-friendly change rooms. We've also allocated $1.3 million for the design and development of Blancs Reserve, located on the corner of Horseshoe Bend Road and Warralilly Boulevard. This development will again include multiple sporting fields. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Howard. And road safety is certainly another important focus of council, and certainly one that is close to my heart. That's why we're partnering with the TAC to build new raised crossings, wombat crossings near Oberon High School and Armstrong Creek. The crossing on Batten Road near the school's entrance will help students and others cross the road more safely, because as anyone knows that lives in Armstrong Creek, Batten Road is used as a rat run to get out to Barwon Heads Road. The TAC has provided $52,000 toward the project, which the City of Grey Geelong has matched, and work is set to begin later this year. The City also received 2 other grants of $30,000 to develop options for safe cycling route from Geelong to Torquay, and towards our Vision Zero plan to prevent trauma on local roads. We're also improving safety at intersections with funding for 2 new traffic lights in this current budget. In the Cadini Award, this includes traffic lights at the intersection of Roslyn Road and Thornhill Road in Hyden, and the intersection of Reserve Road and Horseshoe Bend Road and Drews Road in Marshall.
Thanks, Ron. I'll be celebrating that Thornhill Road intersection, that's for sure. All the different infrastructure upgrades and projects that we do and we've mentioned so far are really going such a way towards our growing community. As we expand, it's equally important to build our community in a way that it's going to enhance the stunning natural surrounds and the environment in which it's placed for generations to come, not just for now. And as council, in recognition of this, we've allocated $1.3 million in this year's budget towards the maintenance and management of the precious 550 hectare Sparrowvale Uree wetlands. And these wetlands, if you haven't been there, they're absolutely stunning. Even in this horrible weather, located on the edge of Cadini Award between Armstrong Creek and Reedy Lake and Lake Conowari, it's providing a fascinating and diverse landscape for the iconic Brolga. Some of which people enjoy, some of which people don't. But aside from them, there's about 100 other bird species. So if you're a bird watcher, check it out and take your goggles down there, binoculars. Also, with respect to planned actions, this includes completing the public walking loop around, which will be great for those who want somewhere else to exercise. Also, the upgrading of the existing shed and shelters for community use, as well as establishing a new off-lead dog park. Good stuff. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Cadini Ward Councillors, for your presentation. All right, a few procedural things to get through before we open for Q&A time. Councillors will be asking for strict adherence to speaking time limits this evening. Are there any apologies or leaves of absence to be noted? If there's none, declarations of conflict of interests. Every day. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 conflicts, one being 2.1, which is the Balmoral Quay development. I have family members that live directly adjacent to the proposed development who are also objecting to it. And I have a conflict with 2.9, which is a tender for waste removal. The successful tender applicant is a significant customer of the business of which I'm a managing director.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I declare an interest in 2.4, the Urban Geelong Long-Term Settlement Boundary Review. I'm a shareholder of property within that boundary review.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you.
If any do-ons do arise at the meeting, please make them known at the time. We're currently declaring conflicts for the reports in the public agenda.
Yes, item 2.1,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I'm a family interest in.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Noted. Right, any other further conflicts, please make them known as they arise. Confirmation for the minutes for the meeting held on the 25th of June 2024. Combi's going to mover. Councillor Harwood. Seconded, Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? It's carried. Public question and submission time. The next agenda is, as stated, for public question and submissions, specifically available for those rather than as a forum for discussion. In accordance with our policy, 45 minutes is set aside for question time, providing for each person to address the council for 3 minutes per question or submission, no more than that. 2 questions asked or submissions made per person is the maximum. The time limit of 3 minutes applies to each question asked or submission made. Questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the meeting will be considered first. After this, if time permits, members of the gallery will be given an opportunity to ask a question or make a submission. However, if it is in relation to an agenda item for tonight, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer because they'll be considering it shortly and you'll hear their thoughts then. For those who have pre-submitted questions but are not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on Council's website and also emailed directly to you. It's also important to note that councillors have read and considered the questions sent in. I'm now going to read the list of submissions and questions that have been sent in, name and topic for the public record. I will then be inviting people who pre-submitted up to the stand in that order. Dean John Frank Vella, Royal Cooney Precinct. Paul Bugg, Venue Hire. Reagan Haythorpe, Dog Bag Dispensers and Bins. Jean Nell, Trees on Private Land. Charles Street, Waste Collection. Liz Bonner of Real Deal for Geelong, Social Housing. Joey Nichter, Plastic Free July. And Daniel Smith for Active Spaces. Can we please have a show of hands of people's names I've just read out? All right, it's here in the gallery, cool. All right, I'll ask if Dean John Frank Vella is here this evening. Dean? His response will be sent directly to him. Paul Bugg? Paul here this evening? Reagan Haythorpe. Please come forth, Reagan. How you doing tonight, Reagan?
Hi. Thank you, councillors, for bringing the meeting to us and the community, Mount Dunedin. My question was just about the off-leash dog parks. We know that the 2023 Victorian Pet Consensus said that there's 1.4 million dog owners in Victoria, and that I think the dog ownership probably in regional areas is probably even higher than that average. So there's lots and lots of four-legged friend lovers in this community. At the moment, within Mount Dunedin, in a 5-kilometre radius, the only off-leash dog exercise area is the Sovereign Park Oval, which is really a great facility, which is a shared space only available to the dogs when there's no organised sport. We appreciate that space, but there's only one dog bag or dog waste dispenser, and it's way over I think it's the Boundary Street end of the Oval. And what we're seeing in the community is that, some less vigilant dog owners, less conscientious dog owners are leaving waste on the Oval. And that's probably because there's nothing at this end of the Oval, and they don't want to walk all the way to the other end of the Oval. I think that we'd see people be more responsible if they had the dog bags at this end of the Oval as well. That's the Unity End Drive. So that would be one improvement we could make, is to have greater availability of dog bag dispensers. There's also no pet-friendly water dispenser for the dogs, which is usually expected in a dog exercise area. So I think that could be an improvement as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question there, Reagan. The Community and Recreation team will certainly investigate your request to install a dog fountain at Sovereign Drive, including the required budget and the availability of a water supply, to find a suitable location to facilitate the installation of a drinking fountain. They certainly need it. Dog poo bins are provided across the municipality, as you know, to assist dog owners clean after the pets. However, as per our dog controls in public spaces, dog owners must at all times have a means to pick up and appropriately dispose of dog droppings in a waste bin. Currently, the advice is that there is no need for an additional poo bin in that location. However, I think we're happy to take that under advisement and make sure we liaise with the community properly on this one here. Concerns regarding dog owners can always be reported to our animal management team, but we do know that those of us who are responsible dog owners and do pick up after our pets, there's nothing more infuriating than seeing people flout those rules. So thank you for raising this to our attention, and we'll be certainly investigating the drinking fountain and further measures.
Fantastic, thank you. And once the resources become available and as the community continues to grow, I think an additional off-leash exercise area would be fantastic as well, because
We'd all love that.
I'm aware of the Sparrowville development that's happening, but for those of us in Mount Dunedin, that would be a 3-hour walking round trip. So it's a great addition, but let's have one in Mount Dunedin.
Appreciate your thoughts. Thanks,
Thank
Megan.
you.
All right. Jean Nell. There you are. How about you, Jean?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Excellent. Well, thank you. Well.
Good evening, councillors. I note the council's response during the June 2024 meeting to Chrissy Freestone's question about trees on private land. The response stated that council officers have been undertaking significant preliminary work in preparation of this engagement and have met with some community members to obtain further background on community concerns, as well as ideas for what should be included in the community consultation process. I'm concerned about how the meaning of consultation and significant diverge for residents and city staff, and how a meeting that was called for a different purpose is now not only branded as consultation, but brought under the realm of significant. I did attend that meeting in my personal capacity as I was invited as such. The council's agenda did not include the Trees on Private Land report or community engagement. The residents used the opportunity to ask, actually politely insist, that we talk about council's progress with the promised engagement and policy. I was in that room, as were Councillor Mason and Councillor Wilkinson, when a city staff member clearly admitted and acknowledged that the city has not progressed community engagement since the February meeting decision. I was in that room when a city staff member stated to me, "While I have you in the room, it's a good opportunity to ask you how do you think we should proceed?" To which I responded that it's a shame that the question was not posed ahead of the meeting and that I would have to take the question on notice to allow for consultation. I suggest the city share the minutes that was taken at that meeting with everyone in attendance, including the 2 councillors, for confirmation as a true record of the meeting. So here's my question again. Could the council please, number 1, provide further details, including the number of residents in attendance, of any other meetings held with community members to obtain further background on community concerns? And number 2, or B, elaborate on the preliminary work undertaken in preparation, or let me rephrase that, the significant preliminary work undertaken in preparation of community engagement.
Good question. Thank you, Jean. I'll go with the Director of City Infrastructure for a response.
Thanks for your question, Jean. We were pleased you were able to attend the meeting held on 18th of June, and there were discussions around the topic of trees on private land. Officers continue their preliminary work for the community engagement process. The community engagement around tree protection on private land and the detailed planning will commence following council elections in late October. A report back to council on the findings of the engagement will occur in the first quarter of 2025.
Thank you for the response. A point of clarification as per clause 6, please. Which part of that response answers my question about the meetings? And which part of that response answers my question about the preliminary work that the council reported on in a public meeting, reported on the preliminary work they've undertaken? I came and I asked a question, provide me details. So which part of that response answers my question about the details of the preliminary work the council said it had undertaken.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate your need for clarification on that one. And whilst it was touched on, I don't think you were given a detailed explanation of that. So we will take this on note and see what information can be made available for you, Jean.
Thank you. And I will very much appreciate if the minutes could be shared so that we can confirm.
Well noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Street. There we are. How are you, Charles?
Good. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Yeah, my name is Charles Street, and I am President of No Waste Incinerators in Lara and Greater Geelong Incorporated. We welcome Council's continuation of the hard rubbish collection service, but there are some other materials which should not go to landfill. So does Council have or recommend services for the collection and proper disposal of hazardous wastes such as waste motor oils, paint, pesticides, halogenated hydrocarbons, heavy metals and the like, please?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Charles. The City accepts and appropriately disposes of a wide range of materials at our resource recovery centres. And residents can use our recycling guide to search for individual product types and learn how to safely dispose of them, whether it's with us or not. The Geelong Australia website has our recycling guide, and the link will be sent to you personally. There are also certain days of the year which we advertise that we do an amnesty on certain materials that are very difficult to get rid of, and once we collect those, we go through the appropriate channels to dispose of them correctly. We don't want to see these sorts of things in landfill. We like to see no landfill in our region, absolutely. But there are a lot of the team in our recycling and waste disposal do a great job, and there's certain days, so I would encourage you to check out that information and hopefully answers your question further.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Charles. Councillor Harwood.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's probably worth noting, I was trying to just jump on the website then to double check, but with its, I think it's oils, batteries, might be some paints are actually free to drop off at the depot, so there's no cost to the community to actually drop off those some of those hazardous wastes. Not all, but there are a number that are actually free to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Want to motivate proper disposal. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Liz Bonner. How are you, Liz?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight and allowing us to ask questions. Firstly, Real Deal influences or has reached to about 46,000 Geelong community residents and is growing. So the Alliance has 9 organisations formally involved. 12 will shortly be formally registered. We want to work with you. So our questions to you are, our community needs 7,000 social housing homes in Geelong. There are residents sleeping in tents and on couches across the city and paying more than 30% of their income in rent as a result of lack of affordable housing. Local developers are also appalled by the lack of provision of social housing and its impacts on community development and wellbeing. How many new social housing dwellings have been approved and completed over the past year within the City of Greater Geelong? And we're not talking about redevelopments here, but additions to the stock.
Yep, thank you for your question, Liz, and for the great work that Real Deal for Geelong do and we all do across our nation. Based on the city's internal data on social housing, there's been an increase of 71 dwellings for the 23-24 financial year compared to the year before. That's well short of 7,000. There's an estimated total of 246 dwellings for projects at Marshall Street, Ormond Road and Myers Street that have achieved planning approval and are waiting for construction completion of the next 2 to 3 years. These figures will be confirmed in the upcoming updates from Homes Victoria.
Thank you. It's getting urgent and we're falling behind our targets. It's been 3 months since Council resolved to act on developing the Purnell Road site with requests for quotes issued. Can you please provide an update regarding when the request for quote for Purnell Road will be issued and when the other 2 vacant COG sites at Bell Post Hill and Belmont will be progressed? Will the council mandate inclusionary zoning across all new housing developments, given the new housing targets currently being set by the state government to ensure that all residents can be housed into the future? And I would add, can we work together to resolve this issue at MAV and, develop a position together?
Yep, appreciate your question, Liz, and MAV is incredibly important for how we advocate to the state government for this sector as a whole. City officers are close to finalising the expression of interest and related processes based on the council resolution from April 2024. I can't give you an exact date right now, unfortunately, but they're at the pointy end of it. The city does not have the power to implement a mandatory and broad-based inclusionary zone through the planning scheme under the Planning and Environment Act of 1987. Power rests with the state government. We have advocated at length ourselves for the state to grant us the authority to have mandatory inclusion zoning within the powers that we do and what we can do with them. That has not yet been passed on to us, and we're not sure that it will. The city's policies, internal processes and resources are aimed to negotiate for the inclusion of social and affordable housing by developers and increasing participation on major planning projects and developments across the region. We advocate heavily for a higher amount of social housing than the state government is currently planning for in certain areas. But, without these authorities granted to us from the state, it makes it very difficult to enforce it. So we both want to aim high, but it's these powers that seem to be quite the issue.
I think the residents are really keen to come together with the council to get an outcome at a state level. I think together we have greater power. So we implore you to work with us.
Yep, we appreciate all allies in this fight. Thank you. Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Liz, for asking the question. I've just got a follow-up question. I'm hoping maybe officers could take on notice following on from the question that's been asked. Just noting that there wasn't a direct response to where things are at with the COG sites at Bellpost Hill and Belmont, if further information can be sought on that. And also just hoping to clarify by the first point of your response, if we're saying we're about to finalise the expression of interest processes and the EOI has yet to go out, or we're close to wrapping up the whole EOI process.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. We'll see clarification on those points. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Mr. Mayor, look, Liz, thank you for your continual advocacy. It's not the first time that you've actually come to council in the last 6 months. The reality is housing actually is the most significant issue that's being confronted, not just in Australia and Geelong, but we're now recognising across the world as well too. The council actually, what isn't mentioned in the answer as well too, is we also have made a decision as the councillors, we want the Bacchus Marsh Road site to be considered for housing as well too. So there's actually multiple site locations that we really do encourage the administration to actually try to activate and be available for social and affordable housing. It is just a pimple in terms of the numbers that are actually required in Geelong, but the significance of it is that it actually shows tangible and direct evidence that the council is actively involved in providing housing opportunities, which is essentially what our social housing policy that was adopted in 2019 said, that council would directly be engaged in the provision of social and affordable housing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Liz, for your strong advocacy. And again, this may be a question to be taken on notice, but really wanting to just take on Liz's imploring council to work together with Real Deal, just wondering how we might explore some of those avenues and opportunities, because we really do need all shoulders to the wheel on this one. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. We're going now to submitter Daniel Smith. Is Daniel here this evening? Oh. Right, that allows us some time to open up to questions from the floor. If there are any questions from the floor, can I please see a raise of hands if anybody would like to ask a question? 1, 2, 3. I'll work from my left to my right. Please. How are you tonight?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. I'll just get your name for the public record and then your time will be yours.
So my name is Glenn Agnew.
Thank you, Glenn. Please.
So I would just like to ask the question, the crossing on Yarra Street. the rainbow crossing on Yarra Street between the two Westfield complexes. I'd just like to ask the council how much was actually spent on that project.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Glenn. We received the same one in the last council meeting. Was that information sought and provided? We'll take that on notice. We really need to follow up that one. I think this is the third council meeting we've heard that request, sir. So that information has to be provided. Thank you.
Thank you. May I just follow that up with a secondary question?
Yep, you're allowed a second question.
Our homeless problem here in Geelong, I'm just trying to weigh up the figure that was spent on that crossing versus how much has actually been spent on the homeless problem in Geelong.
Yeah, no, we understand the question there, sir. We work with many providers in the region who deal with homelessness issue. It is an issue that needs addressing. We work with various agencies, but I'm afraid I don't have a dollar figure for you right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. There was a second question, sir.
Okay, I'm not going to sit down. So, last century, like 24 years ago...
So just your name, sir, please.
I'm Steve.
Steve, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, we had 3 referendums about establishing councils in Australia, and the majority of the people in the Commonwealth of Australia voted against the establishment of local councils. Now, therefore, councils are actually unlawful according to the Commonwealth of Australian Constitution Act, and this council cannot be addressed as local government as it has an ABN number, Australian business number, 18374210672, and is registered as a government entity. An entity is actually recognised as an organisation, an institution or a corporation, and it exists for legal and taxational purposes.
Yeah.
The entities are separate from the persons that own their entities, and the owners are the shareholders. Therefore, through this council having an ABN, it is registered on the stock exchange, and it operates under the legal and financial obligations of shareholders of an overseas American corporation. In addition to this, as the Commonwealth of Australia, the Commonwealth of Australia is also a registered company in Washington, D.C., USA, and as such, this council is of a USA corporation. Therefore, every employee on this council is open for the personal prosecution via the RICO laws. My question is, how will the landmark decision of the Chevron case affect the rules and regulations that this council has set, considering some of the rules and regulations made by American corporations may be revisited and possibly become null and void as per the American Constitution and the Chevron decision?
Yep, fair bit in the one there, Steve.
Yep.
I'll be taking that one on notice. I don't have a response for you right now.
That's good. So if you know what the Chevron case was all about, you'd be very...
I've heard of the Chevron case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, there was a third hand over here. Jennifer, please. And that'll be a question time for tonight. How are you, Jennifer?
Good, thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you for allowing these questions that haven't been submitted. I think Council's very generous in its time answering public questions. My name's Jennifer Banto. My question's about trying to conserve Greater Geelong's disappearing locally significant heritage places, which tell the stories of our history. They are disappearing, particularly in the former South Barwon area, where we are with so much development and so much history. Marshall's just about disappeared, where there's wonderful connections to the wool industry with tanneries and fellmongeries and wool stores and so on. Those who value Geelong's heritage architecture were appalled by the unnecessary demolition by state government of Waverley, 94 Western Beach Road. The exterior and interior was under local government heritage overlay. At the following council meeting, 30th of January 2024, I asked a question about how heritage places, particularly places of local significance, can be protected in council's new organisational structure. Mayor Councillor Sullivan, you responded to say that in the new structure there would still be a councillor heritage portfolio and that a councillor would also chair the Heritage Advisory Committee. Chief Executive Officer Ms Wasey then responded saying that heritage was being discussed with the Executive Director of Placemaking and the discussions included opportunities to ensure heritage was cemented into the new structure. This was very good news. And some thanks since then on two issues. With the CEO's support, there's recently been some very good collaboration and community involvement regarding the Osborne Park Association, and we thank you for that. And with the help of Ms Kate Shearer, Acting Manager City Design, and Ms Kelly Ivans, Government Relations and Advocacy, there's also been some very good work regarding the potential reconstruction of the Marshall Bluestone Cottage, which symbolises a lot of that wool history and heritage, and when it'll be rebuilt, it'll be a wonderful archive of Marshall's heritage history. But, it's always a but there's still no immediate visible evidence of heritage in the recent organisational structure on Council's website. In navigating the placemaking directorate, I found a unit called City Design. I understand this unit may be renamed Urban Design and Place.
Jennifer, you just hit your time limit if I ask you to wrap up in the next minute. Thank you.
But will include open space, built heritage, urban design and public realm. But heritage is still deeply buried and not visible, and and appears to be a minor consideration. This is a question, Mr Mayor. Could Council please consider renaming the City Design Unit to Urban Design and Heritage Conservation, or at least a name which includes the words heritage and conservation?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for your question and your continued passion in the heritage and all the work that you do with the National Trust.
Thank you.
I think we'll definitely take your request under consideration. Many of the councillors here have served in capacities in planning and the heritage portfolio and do have passion for this space. We certainly don't want it to get lost and forgotten. I don't think that's the intent of any councillors nor of any officers either, but we have to make sure that there is, representation in the space. So we'll take
Sparrow Vale, for example, used to be an educational institution to train young farmers in best practice. It's gone, there's one building left.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. We're going to move in now to petitions and joint letters. Tonight there are two petitions to be tabled, I believe. Lindy Jeffrey. Please step forward, Lindy. If you'd like to have a seat and speak to your petition briefly.
Yes, thank you very much for having us. I'm here as a representative for a group of community members of Port Arlington who recently put together a petition to have a dog park, off-leash dog park, added to the Wiley-Langdon Reserve, which is on the Esplanade between the Esplanade and Seaforth Drive. There's lots of, as we've heard before, and probably many people in the room, dog lovers, and we all want to make sure we have a safe space for our dogs to exercise. Currently we have one space in Port Arlington, which is a Port Arlington Recreation Reserve, which is down in town, quite away from where we are on Wiley-Langdon Reserve. We spoke to the surrounding community. We got around 70 signatures on the petition for an extra space to be made available to us. We do have an off-leash area for particular times of the year, not summer times, we understand that, along the beach and up until the roadway, which is quite dangerous to have the dogs too close to the road, of course. And what we're hoping for is that we can have an extra dog park, off-leash dog parks for our community, and that way we can run the dogs safely and just have just that extra space out at Wally Langdon Reserve isn't used for anything else at the moment. It's quite a big space. It does have a children's park at one end, which we understand the dogs aren't allowed near, but it would be a great addition for the dog lovers in our community to have an extra off-leash area, which would help support the surrounding areas of Indented Heads and St Leonard's also. So we would like that to be considered, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lindy, and thank you for gathering those signatures and for tabling that petition.
Thank you.
You'll look forward to a response. Next up, Daryl Richards. Daryl, are you here? There we are, please. How are you, Daryl?
Good, thanks, good.
Cool.
My name's Daryl, and we've been to the council meeting in the recent past with an issue around speed in Kilgore Street, where 2,500 vehicles a day break the speed limit. We left feeling we weren't heard. As I looked around the room, quite a few people were looking on their computers, so we didn't feel that we got the attention that this issue deserves. Councillor Cadwell came back to us and said, you've got to go back to the community, you've got to find out what the community wants. After all, that's what the council is elected to do. So we went back to the community and we were shocked. We were shocked at the bow wave of huge amount of discontent with speed in the community. We were shocked at the mums with babes in hand who broke down when they thought about bringing their families up on speedways and drag strips. We were shocked at the people who lined up to sign our petition. We were shocked at the stories people told of the massive residential developments around the Bellarine Peninsula with no thought put into how you get that traffic across to the Melbourne Road. It's just being pushed out of the city of Geelong and into Kilgore Street. We were told the city have no funds to put one speed hump in East Kilgore Street. Do you think the community would be happy with stainless steel park benches all the way down the street, or safe community roads to live on? Do you think the community would be happy with millions and millions of dollars spent on administration buildings in the city rather than safe streets to live on? It's happening in France, it's happening in England, it's happening in America. It's happening in this room. You've disconnected to the community. You don't understand what's happening out there, and there's massive speed problems killing a lot of people. We were told that nothing happens to petitions, that they just get put in the bottom drawer. We went to the community and we said we might be able to facilitate some change, and they laughed at us. And that is really sad. So we're after some leadership from this group. It's time you folk put your hands on the steering wheel, push the lever forward and did something about leadership in this issue. We've brought this petition to you folk. There's nearly 300 who've signed this in less than a week. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for your petition. Before we head into section 2 of...
Can I just clarify what the petition actually states?
I believe it's it'll be circulated shortly, but I believe it's a petition to build a crossing on Kilgore Street. Yeah?
I can speak to that if you like.
Please, Councillor Cadwell.
So the petition is actually calling on council to install a wombat crossing.
Microphone. It won't pick up from that far away.
All right, is that better? Yes.
Yep.
So the petition is actually asking council to install a wombat crossing or a speed hump or pedestrian crossing at the intersection of Kilgore Street and Fitzroy Streets in Geelong. That's the specific ask. So.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell.
And can I confirm if that is a City of Greater Geelong road or a state road?
I don't actually know.
We can seek that. I thought it was ours. I believe it's ours, but we'll double check on that one. All right. Before I move into section 2 reports, I would like to acknowledge former Mayor Keith Fagg is in the audience there tonight. Welcome back, Keith. Appreciate you being here. All right, section 2 reports. First one on the agenda is, there's a couple of councillors who have conflict of interest with 2.1 and need to remove themselves. They've left the room at 7:20 p.m. Right, amendment C436 GGEE and planning permit PP 5732021 Balmoral Quay in Rippleside. Consideration of panel report. This is being moved by Councillor Harwood.
I'll be moving, Mr Mayor, for the purposes of discussion.
Purposes of debate. Yep, thank you. And Councillor Mason.
Also for the purposes of debate, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillors.
And Mr Mayor, I'd like to foreshadow an alternate recommendation on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Harwood, do you wish to speak to the original motion?
Only to say that this particular development has been going for many, many years, has come before council on many occasions, and has on occasions brought considerable input from the community, and this is, I guess, no different at this particular point in time. Let's make that point.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Mason.
I have nothing further to say at this stage.
Thank you. Do any other councillors wish to comment on the original motion? Councillor Harwood, would you like to close?
I don't have anything to close. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of the original motion? All those against? The motion is lost. Since the motion has been lost, a foreshadowing was indicated by Councillor Murray. Councillor Murray, do you have a seconder for this?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And that alternate motion is now on the screen. Mr Mayor, this is, as those who will know, the old Harbour Trust site, and originally the Rippleside Comprehensive Development Plan was established February 2000, and as Councillor Harwood has mentioned, this has come before council on numerous occasions, and in this group, I think 2 or 3 times, perhaps in the last 18 months, to get to the stage where we are tonight. Just backtracking a little bit, 2014 there was an approval to build a 4-storey, 13.5 metre high development, which was stage 5, without changes to the current Rippleside planning guidelines. In 2022, the developer sought approval to amend these current guidelines together with a permit to build 7 storeys with a height of 28 metres. There's already a permit for 40 dwellings in stage 5 to a height of 4 storeys. The developer's application now would increase to 28 metres, 7 storeys, and add 44 extra apartments. This involves, amongst other things, providing a driveway off Balmoral Crescent, which is a narrow suburban street. This street struggles now to keep up with the traffic load and is a safety issue. And if you're travelling down the hill in Balmoral Crescent and turning left into, I think, what is Yacht Drive or Yacht Road, which goes into the development, it's a safety issue now. And to think you add another 40-odd dwellings on top of that, certainly would be a safety issue. And there's also a parking reduction application on the site, which, if approved, would no doubt force vehicles to park on nearby suburban streets. What I think also is alarming is the overshadowing of Rippleside Park, much used and much loved park. So if this development went ahead, the 27 metres, would cast a shadow over Rippleside Park. I'm also, it's a very grey area, not convinced with the process and the general acceptance of whether this is a medium density area or are we decide by a vote tonight that it's a high density area. This all seems rather messy to me, and I think, look, the question is it simply too big? Is it vastly out of character with the area? Do we put up with a traffic increase? The questionable design traffic flow? And, I really question the role of council here, the role of councillors here. As I said, it's been before us a few times, and I think we'll criticise for allowing it to go through previously, but I think we had a process, and the process has run its case. run its course, and we're now at the pointy end where a decision has to be made tonight. And I think it's all about representing the interests of the residents and the ratepayers. But we also have to have an eye to the future, which this project seems to put up to us. Another matter I place weight on is the expectations of the residents who purchased into the original stages in good faith. And with the knowledge that stage 5 was then a proposal for the 36 or 40 apartments, 4-storey units. So that was all good and there was no objections. And now they've been subjected to the application, which would obviously take it considerably higher. I'm also uncomfortable with the residents having to sign a clause effectively agreeing not to object to any new proposals for this development. I just can't get my head around that. But neighbourhood character is what's important, and it's what's important to the residents of Balmoral Quay and the Rippleside area. And it's important, I think, as a councillor and councillors when we consider this recommendation. Is it important? Yes. Will this, if allowed, change it? Absolutely. Will it even destroy the neighbourhood character? Possibly. The height, scale and sheer bulk of the proposed high-rise building is totally out of character with the surrounding Rippleside neighbourhood. And about 2 months ago on a Sunday afternoon, a mate of mine's got a boat and I said, let's go out. I wanted to see this from a different perspective instead of just standing there and envisaging from Yacht Drive or Balmoral Crescent how this would look. So I got out on the water and looked back at the skyline. And certainly the city skyline has changed, there's a high rise, but when you try and put a 27 metre, 7-storey at Rippleside where the proposal is, and picture it, it just looked way out of character to me. And look, I know that's the timing. You get a feel for things. You get a feel for things when you've been on council long enough. And there's certainly lots of things that have come before us that are contentious, and you could vote for or vote against. I think you get a feel for the residents and what people of Geelong really want. And I don't think a 27 metre, 7-storey apartment block at Rippleside is one of those. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well summarised, Councillor Murray. Look, the only thing I would add to that is that tonight we've in fact been challenged as councillors to show leadership and to listen to the voices of our community. And I think this amendment is a demonstration to the local residents who have been really vocal that we have heard their significant concerns. And I fully support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Councillor's comment? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Chair of Planning, I've also given this matter careful consideration, and I'm surprised with some of the independent panelled findings. Though many design criteria are met, I believe that natural justice has not been served here. As previously stated, the project was already underway under the auspice of the Rippleside Urban Design Guidelines and Comprehensive Development Plan 2000. As already stated, residences were established in acceptance of these norms, which include guidelines on medium density living and growth. Government aspirations on higher density living have been considered in a broad brushstroke of one size fits all. The independent panel considered Urban Geelong Planning Scheme policy framework as an entity, not in its granular form of nuanced differences, not of areas where there may be substantial or incremental change, or areas defined as medium density or high density. As for the amendment itself, Mr. Mayor, more considered controls on higher standards have not yet been put in place, such as application of winter solstice for overshadowing, as the equinox was considered in this case. The degree of step down for existing buildings, more comprehensive analysis and controls for pedestrian safety, degree of growth and density in an already defined incremental growth zone, all alternative design methods to accommodate services such as the Barwon Water pumping station, and so on. Mr Mayor, a comprehensive and considered amendment should be developed and approved before any change in this development project occurs. The amendment is too close for a development proposal and appears to fit the proposal rather than the proposal fitting the amendment. If we are to be having higher density living in this area, deeper consideration needs to be given to the degree of incremental growth in this medium density declared zone. Currently, I believe it defies the accepted understanding of investment in a medium density area. And in this light, competing objections are not met with community acceptance aspirations, and it does not provide for development that is sympathetic to the surrounding residential and recreational environment. Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I remember vividly when this particular proposal first came to Council. It was controversial then. Here we are many, many, many years later, and it's still controversial. And it's controversial for all the wrong reasons. Quite simply, the particular parcel of land is very sensitive. It sits right on the water and would be abutting existing residential properties, and also adjacent to the large park area. So compromise was found, and a permit was granted to the developer of the day. That went up and down through different processes. The number of units went up, it came down, it went back up. And it's come back to council in another form, went from stage 3, 4, 5. And we find ourselves here today with an application to go to 27 metres for stage 5 or similar. I mean, it beggars belief that as a community down there, I can't imagine what you've had to endure, especially those through stage 1, stage 2. I honestly cannot imagine what you've had to endure. I ride my bike through there often, and I've watched it grow and I've watched it become what it is, but I cannot support what I would call greedy growth through that area. I think this is a real statement by this particular council, albeit one of our last sort of statements, because we are up for election in the due future, but quite simply, this particular parcel of land and what it's become, I guess, a litmus test for what the community and the residents, particularly that sensitive area down there, will tolerate. And you have tolerated a lot down there, an enormous amount, more than you should have. So I'll just make those particular comments. I will be supporting the alternative recommendation because it's a bit like enough is enough, and this is enough.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. I'll go to Councillor Hathaway and then...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There has already been significant development in the area, as Councillor Harwood just outlined, and even without this amendment, there is likely still to be further development at 4 stories. Having reviewed the area myself, there are existing legitimate safety concerns with current road infrastructure, which I believe Council need to address prior to any further development in the area. I also have concerns about reported attempts from the developer to silence dissent from residents in the area. I don't view this as democratic. It doesn't pass the pub test, and this is not the sort of intimidatory behaviour that I believe is acceptable in our city. This amendment was not the creation of COG's planning department seeking more residential housing. It's solely been driven by the developer. Many will know that I've been a keen advocate for social and public housing for many years prior to coming onto council, and have continued this advocacy since being on council. The reality is Rippleside is not an affordable area, and a token gesture of one social housing unit is not enough to accept the amendment before us, so I'll be supporting the alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. And just following up on that point that Councillor Hathaway actually just made, that there is we do need more housing and we need more diverse housing, and this council isn't against high density housing, it's just where that is. This is not the answer to greater affordable housing in Geelong. These are luxurious apartments, and I will be supporting this alternative amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not going to add too much because most of what I wanted to say has already been said, and that means that, to me, that we're all in agreement of what we think about this development. Yes, 4 stories is still pretty high, but when you measure it against the cliff, it doesn't look as bad as you first think. I think the residents, although 10 years or so ago, they probably would have been against it, they probably can live with the 4 stories. I was down there on the weekend with a couple of residents, having a look at the traffic issues. If the 7-storey development was to go ahead and access and egress onto Balmoral Crescent, I don't think that's acceptable at all. I think it's bad enough just trying to get in and out of Yacht Way or whatever it's called down there to come onto Yacht Approach. I think that's going to be problematic at best. I think that the developer saying that the Barm Water Pump House was their reason for having to go higher, well, that's the risk you take as a developer, as most people that develop know. That's not a good enough reason. You can build around it. So I will certainly be supporting the community in proposing that we abandon this amendment. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I'm not sure if we go back to close on an amendment or foreshadowed. Yep.
It's okay, I've got nothing to say anyway.
All been said?
All been said.
Excellent. All right, with that, put to the vote. All those in favour of this amendment? Alternate, sorry. Thank you. All those against? That's carried. I will ask for Councillor Contell and Deputy Mayor Aiken to be returned to the room, please.
Don't have to stay.
Whoa.
This doesn't surprise me though.
All right, I'll ask all councillors to take their seats, please. Thank you. The second item on tonight's agenda, Geelong Regional Library Corporation to alternative enterprise business model, moved by Councillor Cadwell. We'll be moving that one. Seconded by Councillor Maloney. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. All right, thank you. As the Deputy Chair of the Geelong Regional Library Corp Board, it's a pleasure to move this item. The Geelong Regional Library Corporation operates local libraries in the City of Greater Geelong, as well as the Surf Coast Shire, the Borough of Queenscliff, Golden Plains and Colac-Otway Shire. The corporation was formed in 1997 with a board featuring councillors from each of the participating councils. And each member council allocates annual funding for the corporation to provide services at the libraries within their respective boundaries. Under the Local Government Act 2020, the Library Corp is required to move to a new operating model to be completed by the 30th of June in 2031. And this report before us asks that Council note that after commissioning a report examining potential alternative business models, the Library Corp Board has endorsed a company limited by guarantee enterprise model as its preference. This is a common model used for not-for-profit and charitable organisations in Australia. And it's also recommended that the Council request that the Library Corp prepare a transition report which sets out future governance arrangements and indicative costs for member councils for the delivery of library services under the new proposed model, and seeks formal approval to transition to the new model. And that report would be formally considered by Council at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. And with regard to the Geelong Regional Library Corporation, of which I'm also a board member, at its 15th of February meeting, we endorsed the company limited by guarantee as the future preferred option to enable flexibility, project scoping, transition planning, and also costing in preparation for future member council decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors wish to comment? Straightforward. Back to Councillor Cadwell to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Nothing further.
Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. Item number 3 is Greater Geelong Planning Scheme Local Policy Review, moved by Councillor Mason, seconded by Councillor Cadwell. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We're required to regularly review the provisions in the planning scheme, and there are consequent changes recommended in the 2 reviews of the Local Policy Review 2023 and the Housing Framework Review 2024. So we're seeking authorisation for the Minister of Planning to prepare a planning scheme amendment to introduce the proposed changes into the planning scheme. Mr Mayor, as in the usual procedure, this planning scheme amendment will include public exhibition and opportunity for feedback. In relation to the local planning policy, we've already implemented our retail and settlement strategies, and we understand that reviews will still occur recurrently, including the requirements of the State Government Plan for Victoria. This review is policy neutral and is intended to streamline redundant content and to present it in a logical manner. It does not preempt future policies, but rather adds local content and consistent strategic work to already adopted by the Council. Strategies such as the Housing Diversity Strategy, the Settlement Strategy, the Climate Change Response Plan 21 to 2030, the Environment Strategy 2020-30, and the Social Housing Plan 2020 to 2041. So this local policy review indicates gaps in the municipal planning scheme, and the streamlining will assist in accommodating these gaps. The report makes clear that much more work has to be done to address these gaps in the future: social and affordable housing, climate change, UNESCO City of Design, the Open Space Framework, natural resource management, built environment and heritage, residential zone overlays, etc. So this amendment is not meant to address all of those issues in any detail. And no land is proposed to be rezoned. It only rationally condenses the content. As for the Housing Framework Review 2024, familiar housing issues have been revisited and confirmed. Issues such as Geelong's population growth in 2022 was 2.04%, while Melbourne was 1.21%. Related Geelong future housing needs, local strategies and constraints such as heritage and the environment, housing change and diversity areas and the existing residential development network, greenfields development and urban infill availability, and housing diversity with the Settlement Strategy 2020. So further, this Settlement Strategy 2020 focuses on urban consolidation and diversity, where many considerations must be taken place, such as neighbourhood and garden character, building heights, car parking, the 2020 retail strategy, the place-based housing, the Bellarine Dal, heritage and landscape constraints, etc. Mr Mayor, from all of this, the appropriate levels of housing change and diversity have been identified. The existing residential framework is confirmed as still being appropriate. These proposed changes also reflect the latest state government directions on planning for housing and the current best practice. With these data considered, it's recommended that the existing residential development framework underpinned by the housing diversity strategy will also be classified into 3 area change designations and key development areas. These are areas designed for substantial change, areas for incremental change, and areas for minimal change. There's no recommendations within this to change any land zoning. So, Mr Mayor, this planning scheme amendment will include public exhibition and opportunity for further feedback and submissions. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Mason's summary was extensive. I don't think I need to add anything further. Thank you.
No, I think you're quite correct. Well said, Councillor Mason. Open to the floor. Any councillors wish to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to say, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Next up is item 4. I believe we have a conflict of interest declared on this one. Thank you, Councillor Howard. Left the meeting at 7:47 p.m. So item number 4 is Urban Geelong Long-Term Settlement Boundary Review, moved by Councillor Mason, seconded by Councillor Cadwell. A high-performing team tonight. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The introduction of a long-term settlement boundary is part of the city's ongoing program of managing growth, and this is the final step of a long process. The boundary's been divided into 9 areas of consideration. These areas are Armstrong Creek Southwest, Armstrong Creek South Central, Sparrowvale, Moolap, Warn Ponds North, Warn Ponds South, Lara North, Lara South and Avalon. There have been some exclusions in this study due to the ongoing work of the Northern and Western Growth Areas, the Southwestern Geelong Investigation and Employment Land Review, and the protected settlement boundary areas between Urban Geelong, Bellarine and Surf Coast Statement of Planning Policies relative to the related to the respective DALs. Mr Mayor, the 9 areas and the existing settlement boundaries have been assessed according to suitability criteria contained in the Geelong Settlement Strategy, and preferred adjustments, if any, have been applied. The Geelong Settlement Strategy was adopted in 2020, and suitability criteria included long-term boundaries already identified, maintenance of non-urban breaks, assessment of environmental and landscape values, consultation processes to deal with anomalies or logical inclusions, collaboration with the state and neighbouring councils, and independent oversight. Other necessary principles to be applied to boundary review included containing growth within identified areas, maintaining the unique identity of Geelong's townships, contiguous land with urban residential areas, delivery of benefit to existing residential land, the need to rely on existing infrastructure, flood risks, accessibility to services, impacts on natural features, reservation and non-urban land uses, and sensitive land use buffers. Mr Mayor, all of these were applied to each of the 9 areas under consideration. A draft report was exhibited in 2022. Submissions received have been reviewed, culminating in the current recommendations. Long-term Bellarine boundaries have already been determined through the Bellarine Dal, while Moolap and Mount Denise areas will have protected boundaries defined as part of the Bellarine and Surf Coast Statement of Planning Policy Dal project. Mr Mayor, part of this study involved public consultation and received 92 submissions. As a consequence, further investigation has been undertaken to explore the different ways further land subdivision might address the interface between Armstrong Creek Growth Area and the rural landscape outside the Geelong settlement boundary. Mr Mayor, we've had recent advice from the Department of Transport and Planning that urbanising land in this area is not consistent with the DALs, cannot be supported through developer concentration contributions, and will threaten Sparrowvale wetlands. Mr Mayor, each of the 9 areas have been carefully interrogated under all of these criteria and following community consultation, and as a result, no major changes to the boundary have been recommended. However, there are 3 minor amendments that have been identified, as is in the recommendation. I'll leave it at that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, a very comprehensive summary from Councillor Mason. The only thing I would probably add is the purpose of this report is the purpose of the content of the report is to set a long-term settlement boundary, which obviously contains residential development while the City of Greater Geelong grows, protecting farmland and significant landscapes and environmental features, and that the report seeks authorisation from the Minister for Planning to start a planning scheme amendment to the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme, and asks the Minister for Planning to consider rezoning 2 sites in Mount Dunedin and Armstrong Creek. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Any councillors to comment? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So basically what this means for the residents of Cardinia Ward around Mount Dunedin Road, Whites Road, Gazapur Road, they've been telling me that the farmland they have is unfarmable. The last time I was down there were some cows on one of the property and they were being removed because it's just not viable to farm. So they will be able to have rural living, which means they'll be able to subdivide them into smaller farmlets where people will plant more trees. So it'll be a lot greener space, certainly along Mount Dunedin Road, which will be the boundary, as we know, we've heard before. That's where the DAL boundary is. So that will be the permanent boundary, but it'll be an even better boundary because it'll be a greener boundary. And I think that's what we all want. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. No further comments. We've got Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank and congratulate officers for their work over a long period to bring us to this position. We understand that there are many tensions involved in urban development planning, tensions emanating from investors and developers, tensions surrounding DALs, tensions involving the environment and orderly and sequential planning, the ability to sustain new developments with current infrastructure and more. So we've had well-founded recommendations based on careful assessment of set criteria, and I think the balance has been well met, and once again thank the officers for their good work.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Please get Councillor Harwood to return to the meeting. All right, moving on to item 5 on the agenda, Geelong major events, updated strategy and terms of reference. Moved Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded Councillor Mason. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Look, tonight I have the pleasure, this is the first of 2 major strategic documents I've had the opportunity to lead since 12 months ago when I was appointed portfolio holder for Stronger Economy and chair of Geelong Major Events. Tonight it's my pleasure to table for the Council for adoption our Geelong Major Events strategy for the period 2024 to 2029. In the last 12 months, we've had a great opportunity to review our major events strategy in Geelong. And what we have done is created a strategic focus associated with our major events strategy. It's not to say we didn't have one. It was a great opportunity for us to actually review it and identify a quite detailed focus going forward. From that work, we've actually identified 6 areas that our major events should focus on. One of those, it should enhance the livability of our community in Geelong. It should reflect our clever and creative aspirations as a community. It should reflect our very strong sport and leisure recreation opportunities. Importantly, for the first time, we're adding into our Geelong Major Events strategy that our events should reflect our UNESCO City of Design designation. It also should support our key industries that we have currently existing in Geelong. And the final area is it should nurture our sustainability and commitments towards carbon neutral in the Geelong community. To be able to do that, the vision actually identifies some quite strong targets. Our economic target is to increase our annual economic benefit from major events in Geelong by 10% every year for the next 5 years. It also attempts to actually say that we have a brand marketing recognition that's required from our major events going forward. And as a consequence, we're actually saying the best chance we have with that is to increase the number of what's known as anchor events within the city. And those anchor events are where we will fund up to $200,000 to actually show the significance of those events, because anchor events are defined as having a national and international focus. And the other 2 areas that we're going to become accountable on is the community impact. We're actually saying between now and 2029, we want to increase community participation in our major events by 30%. And the final area, which will please a number of our councillors tonight with the strategy that we're proposing to adopt, is that we say that we actually want to address sustainability impact associated with our major events. So we're actually committing that we want to reduce the footprint that our major events make in Geelong over the next 5 years to reach our target of 50% reduction in carbon impact of our events over the next 5 years, so we can get to carbon neutral by 2030 as an organisation. And there's significant policy adoptions by the Council tonight with its Geelong Major Events strategy. And what does it mean for the broader community in terms of what they'll see? Well, you will see a shift away from sporting events. You will actually see a diversity of our events under our major events banner in Geelong. So you will see more cultural and non-sporting events if we are true to the strategy that we're adopting. And you'll also see another commitment that's come forward from our major event strategy is to diversify the locations. So the commitment that we're actually talking about is that the whole of the Geelong region should have the capacity to have major events, not just our CBD and our waterfront area, which has actually dominated up until this point of time. The reality is the waterfront is our best place to actually have a major event, but the commitment that we're actually making with this strategy is that Geelong is much more than just the waterfront. We have many beautiful site locations and infrastructure throughout our whole local government area that could be used for major events. So this strategy is worthy of adoption, and it is setting some accountable targets. And I'm really proud of the work that the Geelong Major Events Committee and those involved in this particular strategy, and I commend it to the councillors tonight to adopt it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Aitken, for explaining it in an extremely succinct way. I'd like to thank the independent committee members for their dedication, energy and vision, and to the officers as well for all of their good work. And as is previously said, we have developed a new proactive strategy and TOR that will complement those. And our vision is to establish Geelong as Australia's premier destination for events, delivering exceptional outcomes, elevating our reputation not only on the national stage but the international one as well. And as is already explained, we've arrived at a strategic plan, and we did have quite a lot of community engagement with quite diverse community representatives, upgrading our methods of identification, assessment and accountability. And so each potential event will be assessed how it contribute to identity pillars, strategic priorities and their ability to impact strategic outcomes. And to go on, I think that there's a number of key actions that we need to undertake to implement this strategy, and one of them is a fundamental shift in governance, a shift from a reactive to a proactive approach in event management. And this will mean thorough analysis of existing models. It will mean budget constraints require a fundamental shift to attract diverse event types to the region, as was mentioned, diversity a moment ago, and we'll explore various funding opportunities such as major events levies and government grants. And to do that, we need to establish closer stakeholder relationships and establish updated objectives and performance measurements which address best practices observed in leading events. Mr Mayor, furthermore, in the light of council elections and some possible changes to councillor membership, to provide continuity and effective implementation of the strategy in the new TOR, it's important to retain 3 very effective members. They are Julie Maxwell, Brendan Caligari and Natalie Valentine until July 2025. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any councillors wish to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Deputy Mayor Aiken to close.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason. What we are doing tonight is we are fundamentally saying that Geelong wants to put itself on the map in Australia as the premier regional destination for events. That's actually our major aim and vision and our mission statement of Geelong Major Events. And this document actually gives us the best chance to be able to do that. What I also do want to do is extend the thank yous. Councillor Mason has briefly mentioned as well too. I do want to thank in particular Fiona Duncan, who has actually was the officer that led this work in the last 12 months. Fiona actually finished with the council last Thursday week. However, she's actually got a fantastic new role with Live Victoria, which is bringing international music events, and hopefully we can actually bring one to Geelong under that role that Fiona now has. I also want to acknowledge Brendan Sanders, who was the acting at time Economic Development Manager associated with this report and development of it. And finally, I actually want to thank, in terms of officers, I do want to thank Tenniel Bradley, the Executive Director of this area. Tenniel and I worked very closely to develop this particular process, and we have been able to navigate it to actually create a fantastic document. So it was a pleasure to work with you over the last 12 months with it, and I look forward to working with you in the future with the looks like that the document will be adopted by the council group tonight. I do want to acknowledge my fellow councillors. Councillor Mason has been fantastic to assist the process. Councillor Cadwell has been a new person involved in it and has been instrumental as well too. And my final praise of councillors actually goes to Councillor Nelson because of his historic knowledge of Geelong Major Events and the assistance that he's provided. And Councillor Mason did touch on it. We really have a good group of independent community members associated with the committee, and it is important we do endorse them for another 12 months to continue the work they're doing. And they have actually added value to the document that's been presented to the council group tonight. So it has been an incredibly collaborative process, and I'm really proud of what's actually been presented before council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Your passion is clear. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. Item number 6, Geelong on the Rise, a clever and creative international city, 2024-2034. Moved, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Seconded, Councillor Mason. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Mr Mayor, this is the second one that's actually given me joy in terms of focusing on strategy and developing policy positions for the City of Greater Geelong. 12 months ago, we had a draft economic development plan, but it was floundering in terms of what do we do first. And the reality is the economic environment we were dealing with was overtaking our ambitions. Geelong does face the challenge that we have to build 140,000 new homes by 2051. We've also, by 2041, our population has to increase by 140,000 to 400,000 people. And we also had the final challenge that we have to identify at least 55,000 new employment opportunities for that to be able to match the population growth that we are going to encounter over the next 10 to 15 years in the City of Greater Geelong. So our economic development plan actually had to be able to provide us a roadmap of how we actually respond to those significant economic challenges. Because if we just allow laissez-faire economics to occur, we actually won't have a future that the community has aspirations for and wants to achieve. And as a consequence, the economic development plan has been refined significantly. And an important area that came out of it was that agriculture was actually added back in to a growth opportunity for the City of Greater Geelong, which I'm really proud of, that Councillor Mason and myself led that discussion and the involvement to put it back into our economic development plan. But what our plan does do, it identifies 9 growth opportunities in the City of Greater Geelong. One of those is advanced manufacturing, which we're starting to see every single day. And we're actually quite proud of what's happening in our advanced manufacturing sector. Agriculture and food manufacturing is a significant growth opportunity for Geelong. And many people have thought that agriculture is dead. It is not. It is actually growing. It is even more important that we produce our own food and we actually make ourselves sustainable as a community and not just rely on importing product from overseas. We've identified that the clean economy is a growth opportunity and Geelong has a significant opportunity to play a role in that. Our clever and creative industries and digital technology is a growth area, and we've now mentioned that as well too. The reality is defence has become a significant growth area for Geelong and is mentioned in our economic development plan as well too. And the final area is with our ageing population. Geelong is now a leader nationally associated with healthcare. And we've also got our professional business services, which is built around the NDIA, TAC and WorkSafe. We are now recognised in Australia as one of those significant beneficiaries of decentralisation of government employment opportunities. We also recognise we are still the pivot of a significant transport hub, and transport and fulfilment, because we have ports, because we have roads and because we have rails, is a competitive advantage that we have in Geelong as well too. And the final area, which touches on our major events, we are a visitor economy and events destination point. The number of new hotels that have been announced and built in Geelong in the last 5 years is more than what we've actually had in the last 50 years. It is a wonderful time to actually live in Geelong, and it is a wonderful time to actually be part of the future, and it is a wonderful time under the economic development plan to be influencing that future as well too, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Aiken's nearly said it all, but I'd just like to add that this really has had a long gestation period starting in 2021, and we just did decide to wait until we had a new CEO. So after that CEO was appointed, so that their contribution and commitment could be added to this document. So much work's been done over the last 3 years, and I thank everybody for their work involved in it. And as is in the required norm, it's also had quite a bit of community consultation. And through this consultation, we had over 800 website views. We've been guided by over 100 local businesses, industry representative groups and stakeholders, plus a 25 further community members via Have Your Say and 21 formal submissions. So, of course, our plan during this long period has been further improved. And now we have a vision of a clean, livable visitor economy and events with creative industries and digital technology, decarbonised transport and logistics, advanced manufacturing, professional business services and defence industries. It's one where sustainability, climate change and circular economy principles have prominence and are interwoven into key strategies and core opportunities for the region. Mr Mayor, the plan is consistent with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, specifically focusing on SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, which is also emphasised through the city's designation as a UNESCO City of Design. Mr Mayor, I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillors to comment? Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Unfortunately, I'm expressing some disappointment with this document, which is a shame because there's lots of great things in there. Particularly, I'm disappointed that COG continues to champion the defence industry in our strategy documents. This isn't the first time or first document that's come before us that does so. I acknowledge that as a council, we can't determine where the federal government chooses to spend its money, and we can't, as a council, end wars or genocide occurring in other parts of the world. But we can control what goes into our strategic documents and what industries we want to promote or attract into our city and what we choose to highlight in our documents. Whilst we're not manufacturing the whole weapon in Geelong, we are manufacturing parts that are being sent to third parties and assembled into weapons that are being used in Gaza. So I can't, in good conscience, support this document with the current inclusions in there.
Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. I believe we need clarification of parts manufactured where are ending up in certain theatres of war. I cannot confirm that right now, but your notes on defence industry are noted. So other councillors to comment. I'll speak again in support of this document. It is important that we plan for the future. The future is coming, and it's strategic documents like this that will place us in the driver's seat, in pole position, to be in the best position that we can when it does come around. Our region is growing. Our population is growing. We need to be prepared for the services, infrastructure, to promote employment projects that will service our local industries, that will really benefit local people at the end of the day, because local community is at the heart of everything we do here. I spoke in support of this document when it went up for community consultation, and I believe I won't repeat everything that Deputy Mayor Aiken has said, but it's things like this that will launch us into the future, and I'd like to commend all the good work done by officers and councillors who have been a part of it. With that, I'll throw back to Deputy Mayor to close.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I encourage anybody to actually read the document in its totality and not just take out individual components of it. The document is actually very authentic, and there's some really good information that the broader community would be interested in. We actually do talk about a number of the challenges and barriers that we have in Geelong in terms of our economic prosperity for the future, and it is important to identify those. We actually do say in the document there's a lack of available and affordable housing. It's in our economic development document that we're presenting now. We also say that Geelong is subject to traffic congestion and a lack of public transport, and it will impact on our economic development unless they are properly addressed. It also talks about the rapidly changing environment that we're operating in and how we have to be much more nimble to be able to respond to those changes and not have just a fixed view. It also talks about, and I'm really proud about this, to be able to get it into the economic development plan, it talks about the pockets of high social economic disadvantage that exists in Geelong, and it actually says that we will not be known as a prosperous community unless we share that prosperity with everybody. And it also talks about climate change and sustainability, and it also talks about a very significant important fact that we have a lack of serviced industrial land in Geelong. And unless we actually actively challenge and have actions associated with those challenges and barriers, we will not meet the aspirations that we put forward in our economic development plan. So please, I encourage everybody, this is a very good document. It needs to be looked in totality. It is extremely authentic. We talk about the good, we talk about the bad, but the important thing is we're actually saying that we actually want to determine our future in Geelong and our economic prosperity and what are the components of that and how we actually get there. On this document as well too, it may sound like a bit of a record, broken record, but I do want to acknowledge the consultant. The consultant did a fantastic job to actually review the original document and transform it to what's presented before us tonight. And I do want to highlight two officers once again, Brendan Sanderson, who during the development of this document was the acting economic development manager, as the best way to describe his role. He's now the permanent position in that, and he did a fantastic job with it. And once again, I share with the council group, I do acknowledge Tennealle Bradley, the Executive Director associated with this area as well too. Tennealle and I did work together once again on this one, how we were going to work forward, how we were going to take a very good base draft document, but actually making it even better document. And I'm really proud that we were able to do that by working together and collaboratively, and by putting that to all our collective governance and administrative skills and abilities together, we have presented the document that's been put forward by council to adopt tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. With that, put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. Item number 7, 2024 Community Engagement Policy Impact Report, moved by Councillor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Contell. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is just for noting that the 2024 Community Engagement Policy Impact Report, we thank the community for their ongoing commitment to share their views. We heard tonight some people asking about proper dog parks and dog bins. So this is where this is where the rubber hits the road and they can really make their impact. This is the third of the fourth report, the final one's for next year. And interestingly, there were 246,000 views on this engagement policy and 16,000 submissions. So I really which is a 10% increase on the last one. So I really do encourage the community to have their say on these engagement policies and get a bigger percentage than 10.3% for next year's one, so that we know where to build the dog parks and the community centres and the sporting fields, or not so much sporting fields, but those community facilities. Please have your say on the next community engagement policy, and thank you to the residents that had their say this time.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, all I'd like to add is that it's pretty obvious that it's something that we just need to continue to work on. We know that communication is the key to success in no matter what we do, whether that be in our private relationships or whether that be with community or otherwise, or the business that we do on a day-to-day basis. And we've done some good things in the past 12 months. We've had some good engagement policies and some good engagement initiatives. I'll use Sparrow Park as one of those, and it's mentioned in the report. I actually was part of that, and what I think was good about the Sparrow Park example is that we didn't rely solely on the Have Your Say. I think we need to make sure that we don't just funnel everything through Have Your Say. Understand that that is a convenient way of potentially communicating and consulting with our communities, but we also need to get out on the ground. And the good thing about Sparrow Park was we had drop-in sessions over a series of weekends when people could come, when they weren't working, where they could come with their children, provide real feedback to us about what they wanted to see in that space. And better still, officers actually listened, and we made those changes in line with that feedback. Not all of it was as everyone wanted, but we managed to keep some things and we managed to change some things. And I think that's a good example of it going well. There's been some real challenges with some of the areas that we've been consulting on, but I think continuing to get a balance between online and then boots on the ground and giving people old school opportunities to engage with us and consult with us will be the success going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Another councillor's comment? If not, Councillor Nelson will close.
Nothing further, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put it to vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Item number 8, election period policy adoption. I'm happy to move this one, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. It is mandatory that we do have an election period policy. It's described under the Act to ensure good governance during that time. This is a draft policy that went out in May for community consultations. It has been through the chamber before. There's been some tightening up around words, around duplications of language, signage, updates to lists of delegated committees and whatnot. That's all there and available. Very like to thank everyone who had input into this, the team who helped develop and redo it a bit, but for all the community members who put input into it as well. It is an important time. It is one of the great things about living in a nation that has elections, that we do have a policy that goes along with it. Deputy Mayor.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any councillors to comment? I have nothing further to say in closing, so I'm happy to put that straight to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. There's item 9. There's the conflict declared. Councillor Contell has left the chamber at 8:22 p.m. Item 2.9 is T23001112, Hard Waste Collection Services. Moved Councillor Harwood, seconded Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is pretty straightforward, correcting a resolution from our March meeting this year where we had an error in the term of the contract for Cleanaway, who is responsible for our hard waste collection services. So the change would alter the initial term of 36 months to 60 months, with 2 12-month options extended at the city's discretion. So that's the item we have before us, is basically correcting an error, bringing Cleanaway up to the 60-month period as our hard waste collection service. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Aiken. Do we continue or do we continue? Yeah, we're just going to pause for 5 minutes. We've just had a disruption to the live streaming. Would you be? It's still being recording, but we'll just pause. The viewership must have been so high. You must have had.
Bruce, that was a beautiful speech, and it wasn't recorded.
It was recorded. It was recorded. We just had so many people tuning in for it that it crashed the system.
Occasionally, Bruce.
It's pulling in the viewers.
Did it go down before I did my economic development one, Trent?
Pardon?
Did it go down before my economic development one?
No. It's definitely not. It's still being recorded, everyone. Still being recorded. So just hold tight. Hold tight.
Are we checking if CrowdStrike's got anything to do with it?
I'll confirm that CrowdStrike has nothing to do with this. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. No good for you. Treat yourself.
Shannon's still there, Shannon Gray. There was a person during the shoot order in a sanctum saying, hey, what do you reckon? That's your guy. His knowledge of big events and connections globally, I don't know if they've been tapped into. I doubt it.
Yesterday, was a developer causing him, just asking lots of questions how to go against.
All right, we've recommenced. We apologise to that for that disruption to your regular Tuesday night viewing. We'll resume now with the meeting. I believe Deputy Mayor Aiken, you're about to second the motion.
I did, Mr Mayor. Look, thank you, and it's great to find out that the broader community still gets to hear all the councillors speak at a council meeting. Look, in terms of the hardware service collection, I just want to talk a little about history. I am really proud of this one because it was the first notice of motion I actually brought to council in 2018, and it actually was to establish the hard waste collection system, and it was adopted unanimously by the council group at that particular time, and it is now one of our most well-loved services that we provide in the city of Greater Geelong. If you have a mattress, if you have an old sofa, if you have an old television set that you actually want to get rid of in the city of Greater Geelong, you've got 2 chances to be able to do that. And tonight we're actually adopting the tender process to continue that well-loved service for the next 60 months, isn't it, James, is the term? We're doing it for 60 months. So in other words, we're doing it for the next 5 years. And it is fantastic that a service that has been well utilised, well loved and well supported by the council group since 2018 will be continuing with the announcement of the tender process tonight, all from a notice of motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think we all recall the history, many of us were there. But you're right, 60 months with 2 12 months options to extend. Any other councillor wish to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Harwood to close.
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. That put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That item is carried. Can we please have Councillor Contell return to the chamber? All right, that brings us to the end of Section 2 reports. Section 3, I need a mover and a seconder for the record of informal meetings of councillors. Moved Councillor Hathaway, seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. Well, Section 4 confidential. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to move item 4.1 into confidential? Moved Councillor Harwood, seconded Councillor Murray. All those in favour? Thank you. Item number 4.2. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for that to go into confidential? Seconded. Oh, sorry, I need a mover and second. Apologise, I just put my hand up there. Moved Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is moved into confidential. We're now to consider the remaining items in our confidential section of the meeting. Thank you to everybody who has remained in person and all those who are watching it online tonight. Thank you for your time. We'll see you at the next one.